Will LaNorris Sellers play for South Carolina this Saturday at Mizzou? A seventh year for Diego Pavia, is that possible? And Billy Napier, just how hot is that hot seat? Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's happening, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across their app. Download the app today. All right, let's dive into it. As we talked a lot on Oklahoma, Auburn on yesterday's show, I want to get into a little bit on Mizzou versus South Carolina happening this weekend. And Eli Drinkwitz talking with the media yesterday. He and his Mizzou squad looking for a third straight 4-0 start to the season, as they will host South Carolina on Saturday at Fort Field. And there's a chance LaNorris Sellers might not make the trip after he suffered a concussion in the Week 3 loss to Vanderbilt. Now, asking Eli Drinkwitz, he told the media, quote, "I anticipate LaNorris to play." Sellers, of course, was considered a Heisman Trophy contender coming into the season. And when he got banged up in that Vandy game and left, Luke Doty took over, a guy who's been there since 2020, but it wasn't pretty. And the offense didn't flow the same. And the defense obviously was they let up last week, and it just got very ugly against Vanderbilt. But Doty, South Carolina's win over Mizzou last year, 34-30 victory, snapped a 5-game losing streak against Mizzou. Can Luke Doty do that? I think a lot of us kind of have questions and doubt that he could. LaNorris Sellers is obviously very talented and unique in his skill set. So obviously he is a difference maker if he is able to go. We should get some more clarity on that within the next 24 hours. But Mizzou, looking at their lack of SEC night games and kind of using that as some motivation. The Tigers had 3 night games last year. Just one, Oklahoma, was an SEC game. And Eli Drinkwitz didn't let it go unnoticed, meeting with the media on Tuesday. He said, "We've only had 3 night games since 2021, while others in the league have had way more than that. It's an awesome opportunity for us to take advantage of that." Of course, Tigers game against Oklahoma last year was a 6:45 Central kickoff, and went well for them. They won that one. But Drinkwitz certainly hoping Saturday's game against the Gamecocks, which is a 6 p.m. Central kick, hoping that this one goes how some of their other home games have gone. He said, "Look, I think we just kind of keep the same mindset. We all realize the SEC is a tough conference. You got really good players. You got really good coaching staffs all the way around. So I think we've done a really good job over the non-conference schedule of handling the details and just doing our job." Now, one of the big pieces that's been different, obviously, Bo Prabula at quarterback has done a really good job. But to me, it's running back Ahmad Hardy, who had the monster week last week, 22 carries for 250 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, and he was named the Walter Camp National Offensive Player of the Week. He now sits at 462 rushing yards on the season, 5 rushing touchdowns, currently ranks first among all SEC running backs in yards on the ground. And he's been a difference maker. By the way, Mizzou also announcing that this game is a sellout. So not a surprise there with a big SEC matchup ahead. And Eli Drinkwitz wants to make sure that all the fans are in their seats and ready to go. Now, what about on the other side of this matchup? It is Shane Beamer. He was speaking with the media this week, and his optimism, he expressed optimism yesterday that Sellers could perhaps play. Media trying to get it out of him on Tuesday. He said, "Nope, we have an injury report for an SEC game that we release on Wednesday nights." But he did confirm on Tuesday that Luke Doty remains the backup. Beamer saying, quote, "If the game was today and LaNorris was not able to play, then yes, Luke would be the starter. But just like every position, we got to continue to compete, and the quarterback position is no different. Those guys are doing some really good things. Air Nolan, Cutter Woods, they're getting better along with all the guys on our team." Now, On Three's Pete Nakos reported Sunday that Sellers was dealing with the concussion and he would be monitored for over the next 48 hours. So those 48 hours have come and gone. And generally speaking, Beamer discussed his policy on how much a player needs to practice in order to play. He said, quote, "We have a pretty consistent policy that if you don't practice Tuesday or Wednesday, you're not going to play. I don't care who you are. If you don't get out there and practice Tuesday and Wednesday, especially, it's really tough to just practice on a Thursday and play on Saturday." So this is pretty big. If you guys are watching this, listening to this on Wednesday, if LaNorris Sellers was not at South Carolina practice today, then it's going to be Luke Doty on Saturday against Mizzou. A few notes here on South Carolina. They Casey Henry, their starting right tackle, he exited the game last week after just 14 snaps, did not return. They are hoping to get back cornerback Judge Collier back this week. He missed the last 2 games and most of the opener against Virginia Tech with a knee injury. Now, as far as the offensive play calling, there's been a lot of criticism of Shane Beamer and particularly Mike Shula, his OC. It's raised some questions about the play calling, whether Shula has been effective utilizing the rushing ability of LaNorris Sellers. Beamer said, quote, "I hear all this crap about they're not running the quarterback enough or something. We're calling the same gosh dang plays as we called last year, guys." So Shane Beamer, not very pleased with that take or that criticism of his OC and Mike Shula. And look, a lot of folks are in SEC circles criticizing as well, saying Mike Shula, of course, former Alabama coach who was fired a long time ago, kind of saying, was this the best you could get? Is this the guy that was expected to take this offense to new heights? Again, it's all fair criticism as long as they're not doing their thing. But look, the reality is if Sellers doesn't go this week, I don't know what you want South Carolina to do. I mean, they're going to just have to get really creative. They're going to have some more punt returns for touchdown from Vakari Swain. I mean, they're going to have to get really creative in trying to create something, because I just don't know if Luke Doty at quarterback can do it. Maybe the run game opens up some big holes and they're able to get that going against Mizzou. But again, betting man, Mizzou playing at home in their house with all the weapons they have, it's hard not to see Mizzou winning this one. All right. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, we'll hit on some other news and notes around the conference, including Diego Pavia in the news for perhaps a 7th year of eligibility. We'll give you the latest on that coming up here in just a second. Hey, but first, a word from Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS top safety picks and awards than anyone else, from footwork to breathwork. Athletes, they sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how they craft every model, and you can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but. From the smooth handling to the intuitive controls, you're going to love your Mazda. With the all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season of the year. And like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. They are Mazda. Move and be moved when it comes to Mazda. Hey, it is almost the weekend, folks, and it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. So let's jump into it. For Georgia, we're going to go with Gunnar Stockton. He delivered in a big way, throwing some big passes, particularly one late in the game on 4th down to pull out the win against Tennessee. They got it done in overtime, and when the pressure was on, Stockton came through. No hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching him week after week, it wasn't a fluke. Gunnar Stockton is having a great streak of a season. And just like Gunnar Stockton delivered for Georgia, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. It is DoorDash. All right, roll along here. Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Shout out to everydayers. Keep coming back and checking us out each and every day. Got some special guests going to be joining us throughout the week right here on Locked On SEC. You don't want to miss that. Sam Acho scheduled to jump on with us to talk a little bit about the great stuff that's happening with Allstate and the Good Works team. And of course, he's been in the booth every week doing his thing with college football. So we'll get some SEC thoughts from Sam later in the week. Let's dive back into it, guys, with some of the news. And Diego Pavia making the headlines on Tuesday. As started early Tuesday, his attorney came out and said that Pavia could challenge perhaps for another season of eligibility, making a case that the Vanderbilt star could get a potential 7th season of college eligibility. There was a hearing on Tuesday in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit, and Pavia's attorney said that unless the rules aren't found to be subject to antitrust, they are all set to add a challenge to the redshirt rule and seek an injunction for Pavia to be allowed to play another season. Sports law professor Sam Ehrlich, teaches at Boise, reported the potential challenge for Pavia to play in 2026. The redshirt rule challenge would argue that all players deserve 5 full seasons of NCAA eligibility as opposed to a 5th year only applying to players who redshirt and do not play a full season. Now, Pavia's 6th year was granted amid a legal challenge that JUCO should not apply to NCAA eligibility. But according to Ehrlich's post on Tuesday, he thinks there could be a path for Pavia to play. Well, Diego Pavia very quickly shut that down. Of course, he transferred to Vanderbilt prior to the 2024 season. A lot of us were kind of surprised when we found out, okay, he's going to get another year. Okay, awesome. That's going to be fun. Famously winning that ruling against the NCAA this past offseason. Well, Diego Pavia took to his personal Twitter account and quickly shut down any rumblings of him trying to come back in 2026. It's pretty clear Pavia is set for this season being his last season in college football. And we'll see where he ends up after this. Is it the NFL? Is there a role for him there? But nonetheless, Diego Pavia likely done. But it was a fun story for about 12 hours to kick around that, hey, can we get another season of Diego Pavia? That would certainly be fun. How about over at Florida? Some interesting news over there as obviously Billy Napier remains one of the biggest coaches on the hot seat. But some news coming out yesterday evening that Florida football assistant coach Jabbar Jalouk is going to be suspended for 3 games. The SEC and the University of Florida jointly announcing a 3-game suspension for Jabbar Jalouk. He's the associate head football coach and running backs coach at Florida. And this is all pertaining to his involvement in altercation prior to the Florida at LSU game this past Saturday. Greg Sankey saying in a statement, Jabbar Jalouk's conduct during the pregame altercation reflects behavior that is unacceptable and not aligned with the standards of the SEC. Coaches are expected to be leaders and to de-escalate tense situations, and that did not happen in this circumstance. This suspension is appropriate, and any further misconduct by Jabbar Jalouk will result in more severe disciplinary action. Now, I can speak to this firsthand. I was in Tiger Stadium over the weekend. I was there down on the field pregame, and Florida was on one side. LSU players were on the other. This is probably about an hour before kickoff. And the Florida players decided, I don't know if it was led by Jalouk or the assistant coaches, whatever, decided to do a lap around the stadium. When they got over to the LSU student section, some of their students were yelling stuff at the Florida players. They stopped, had some words back and forth. And then the LSU players kind of saw it and they got involved. Now, I'm assuming Jabbar Jalouk must have instigated this. He's a guy who was a former assistant at LSU years ago. So he must have known this is going to create a stir. This will do something to maybe we can get lucky and one of LSU's players gets ejected or something like that. But anyway, that's my perspective of what I saw happen. But Jabbar Jalouk put out his statement. He said, first, I would like to apologize to both Florida and LSU, their teams, staff, and fans. Also sincerely apologize to the young athletes and their families. On Saturday, I reacted in a manner I'm not proud of. There's no excuse for my behavior. Take full responsibility for my actions. In this game, emotional situations occur and bad reactions happen. I know more is expected of us as coaches. Now, Scott Strickland, who was at the game, I saw him in the AD suite. He said, Jabbar has consistently been an upstanding member of our staff, and I commend him for accepting responsibility in the situation. And lastly, Billy Napier said, Coach Jalouk's actions prior to our game against LSU are not up to the standard of our program. He's a man of character, has taken full responsibility. So it's going to sting not having your, assistant head coach and also your running backs coach that you rely on to get the most out of Jaden Ball and the other backs in that backfield. So certainly something to keep an eye on there for Florida with some big games coming up these next couple of weeks. Now, as for Billy Napier, one of the websites out there put out odds for the next college football coach to be fired. Billy Napier is the odds-on favorite. They have him at plus 225. Behind him, it's Scott Satterfield, Tony Elliott, Brent Brennan, Mike Gundy, and then Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. They still have on this list at plus 900. You would think that the way the team's played the last 2 weeks, he would be maybe off this list. And then Mark Stoops at Kentucky, they have him at plus 1,000 along with Luke Fickell. So look, it's just one sports betting website's perspective on the next head coach firing, but just thought it was pretty. Look, this is all college football. They think Billy Napier is on the hottest of seats and that he is likely to be the next coach to be fired. Now, when you look at their schedule and how this shapes up, obviously they got the big matchup against Miami coming this weekend, and that is at Miami, who is a number 4 team in the country. Then they get a bye week, and then they're home for a top 10 team against Texas. And then the next week they go to College Station, and they are at a top 10 team in Texas A&M. So it is a brutal schedule. But I was told by a couple of folks that they think if these next 3 weeks, or next 3 games, 4 weeks with the bye week in there, but if these next 4 weeks do not go well at all, that Napier will be relieved of his duties, perhaps as soon as following that A&M game going into the Mississippi State week of October 18th. When this person told me this, I said it with a big no duh. Like, isn't that obvious that if this thing was going sideways, and I get it, it's tough games. It's top 10 opponents you're playing, but still, this is compounded with a loss at LSU where your quarterback, your 5-star quarterback threw 5 interceptions, and then compounded with the home loss to USF, which a lot of folks thought never should have happened. And then it made it look even worse the next week when USF goes and gets pounded by Miami. You start to go, that was a really bad loss. So either way, look, it's going to be tough. We'll talk about this on our squad show later in the week. I just don't know, barring some monster upsets, I don't know how Billy Napier survives this season at Florida. I've said it before, I think he's a good coach, just probably not cut out for the Florida job, and certainly for an SEC schedule that has been absolutely loaded every year since he stepped foot in Gainesville. Schedule makers have done him no favors. So we'll certainly track it, but it's just barring a miracle turnaround, I just don't see how he saves his job. All right, a few other notes here. Jumping around the conference, we head over to Oklahoma's Brent Venables. Talked about Jackson Arnold's return to Norman. He said, look, things have worked out well for him and us both. I'm really happy for him that he's having great success at Auburn. He's having great success running, throwing, and he's being really efficient. He's taking care of the ball. Auburn's offense and defense complement one another, and Jackson Arnold has done a really great job. Auburn and Oklahoma will kick off at 2:30 Central on ABC in the SEC opener for both teams. Hey, over at Texas A&M, a shout out to Mike Elko. He earned a National Coach of the Week honor after his team knocked off then ranked number 8 Notre Dame by a score of 41-40. Really, really good coaching job from him, and he was named the Paul Bear Bryant Awards National Coach of the Week for leading the Aggies to that win up in South Bend. Congrats to him. And then lastly, over at Georgia, Joel Klatt of Fox Sports, he on his podcast and his show on Fox Sports this week saying that he thinks the SEC still goes through Georgia. He said, quote, the SEC goes through Georgia still because those dogs can bite. They have resilience. This is a great, proud program. They practice with urgency. They build their roster with urgency, and they play with urgency. We did not see this from Alabama against FSU in week 1. This is a team that answered the bell in that environment, meaning on the road at Tennessee this past week. He said most teams would have folded. They wouldn't have had the mental fortitude. They wouldn't have had the toughness, and they wouldn't have the quarterback with that same toughness to come back from 21-7. I'm sure the defenses will play better moving forward because they won't have to see the offense they just saw. But it's just a reminder, you still have to beat Georgia, and that's incredibly difficult to do. That conference still goes through Georgia. It goes through Kirby Smart right now. It goes through Gunnar Stockton. So kudos to the Georgia Bulldogs for that big win and what can only be described as one of the great environments in college football. So a lot of praise there from Joel Klatt, certainly on discussing the environment there that Tennessee had. A Knoxville crowd, they brought it, man, college game day and everything. They just couldn't pull it out. And obviously the kicker had a chance to win in regulation, couldn't get it done, and they go on to lose in overtime. But he's right. Again, Georgia, to me, I said the last 2 years, they're the standard. They're the team that everybody's trying to catch, in terms of on-field success. I know Alabama fans will say we've certainly had our fair share of winning matchups against Georgia. And guess what? 2 weeks, we're going to see that play out. And we'll see, the Kalen DeBoer era, he is 1-0 against Kirby from last year. Can he make it 2-0 and keep that Bama dominance going against Georgia? We will see. All right, still more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Hey, look, most people cannot name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401k, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can't end up leaving, or you can end up leaving money on the table. And that's where our friends at Monarch Money come in. It is an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. They do the heavy liftings. You can link all your accounts in minutes. You can see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Go take advantage. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Go to Monarch Money and use our code LOCKEDONCollege. You just go to monarchmoney.com in your browser and use that code LOCKEDONCollege. It will get you half off your first year. That is 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com when you use code LOCKEDONCollege, monarchmoney.com. Go check them out today. All right, final segment here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And I want to get into this because I saw an interview this week with some of the old CBS folks, and it made me miss, the old SEC on CBS and the theme and Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson and all the presentation, all that. I know they're ingrained with the Big Ten now, and it is what it is. But we got to talk about how ABC and ESPN and Disney are having massive, massive success when it comes to the TV contract that they signed with the SEC. And ABC just announced the best 3-week start ever following huge TV ratings, particularly for the Georgia-Tennessee game. In fact, it helped the network collect its highest cumulative ratings for the first 3 weeks of college football season, according to ESPN's PR account. The game between the Bulldogs and Vols averaged 12.6 million viewers, at one point even reaching up to 16 million viewers. Collectively, an average of 7.8 million viewers have watched college football on ABC over the first 3 weeks of the season. Its highest total in that time span in the network's history. And of course, like we said, that's helped with ABC taking over CBS's long-running SEC package. The ESPN family of networks have also seen record viewership for College Game Day. The first 3 episodes of the season have been the highest ever in the show's history, topped by the Lake Corso finale in week 1. And during week 4, of course, ABC's got another full day of college football coverage. They will have Arkansas versus Memphis in the early game. They'll have Oklahoma hosting Auburn in the afternoon. And then you will have Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit, and Holly Rowe calling Miami at Florida in the Saturday night game. And here's hoping that, at least for their sake, that at least for Billy Napier and Florida's sake, that it's somewhat competitive. Look, DJ Lagway is a super talented dude. And, maybe the 5 interceptions last week was just because LSU's defense is that good that he's going to play a much better game against Miami's defense. I don't know. We will see. But, yeah, the ESPN College Game Day week 3 episode saw the game day crew in Knoxville for Tennessee versus Georgia. And that episode just this past Saturday averaged 2.7 million viewers, peaking at 3.4 million in their final hour. It is the second most regular season episode in the show's history, setting a mark previously reached during week 2's episode. So you compare that to their week 3 show last year in 2024. They were in Boulder for Colorado State. 34-point increase from that game. And collectively, the 3 game day episodes this season have rated nearly 40% higher than a season ago. I get it. Maybe you guys don't care about, all the numbers and notes, but it is just fun to see that, again, the SEC is having massive, massive success. And Miami hosting College Game Day for the 9th time. Saturday will mark their 27th overall appearance, 15th most in the show's history. A few other notes here, just to reiterate, Lane Kiffin asked about Austin Simmons again. He said, I would anticipate Austin being fine to play and be our starting quarterback. for their game against Tulane this weekend. Have heard from multiple people. They said they think there's a thought that Trinidad Chambliss could be the guy again this week, with Austin Simmons not being ready to go. So, look, Lane's going to play it coy. He's going to kind of act like, I'm sure we'll give Tulane something to think about. He's not going to come right out and say Austin Simmons isn't going to play, but we'll see as we get closer to that. One more note before we get out of here. This was kind of making the rounds of college football circles yesterday, but Ross Dellinger posted this, that the SEC is hiring an assistant commissioner for football. They put up the search committee is searching the Parker search firm website listing associate commissioner for football. And basically some people seeing this and saying, oh, so Greg Sankey's looking for a number 2, like somebody that can help be the associate commissioner for football with him, to maybe help make some big decisions and all that. I even saw some people saying, so where does Nick Saban apply? Some folks have thrown out there, maybe Josh Pate could get involved. So again, just kind of an interesting thing to keep an eye on, what happens there. And is Greg Sankey maybe looking to take some stuff off his plate? Is he looking for who's going to be the predecessor or who's going to follow him? I don't know. But it was just kind of a fun thing that was getting floated out there in college football circles, and we'll keep an eye on that. All right, that is going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. And hey, for your second listen, your second watch, you can check out Locked On Fire TV present the college football kickoff show with two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson alongside Jesse Holly and Drake Toll, and Locked On's local experts. College football preview only Locked On can do. Catch it every Thursday throughout the season only on Fire TV, college football kickoff. That's going to do it for me, Chris Gordy. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.